Sony has a new flagship camera phone. It's the Xperia I Mark VII. This is the 7th generation of Sony's top phone, so what are they doing to push the boundaries this time around? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our Xperia I Mark VII review. Oh, hold on a second. Before we jump in, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you. Our channel just hit 2 million subscribers. It's a massive milestone, and we're incredibly grateful for your support. Now, on to the review. Sony's Xperia flagships are well known for their advanced cameras, no-nonsense design, and dedication to doing things in a slightly different, even old-school way. This year's Mark VII model continues that tradition, and upgrades it a bit with some tweaks with the display and audio, and a new chipset. And perhaps the most notable change this generation is the new ultrawide camera, which has a large sensor and promises excellent quality. Looks-wise, the Xperia I Mark VII is pretty close to the previous model. The phone is rectangular, and the back is made of Gorilla Glass Victus, which has a rough and grippy texture. The aluminum frame is slightly different from before, but still has a ribbed texture for some extra grip. The design is overall practical and comfy to hold. The ingress protection hasn't changed. The Xperia I Mark VII is rated at IP65/IP68 against dust and water. And the display of the phone is again a 6.5-inch OLED with a 120Hz refresh rate and Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protection. In days past, the Xperia flagships had 4K displays, but in recent times they've switched to a more practical 1080p. And with this resolution, the display is still plenty sharp and looks good. There's support for 10-bit color depth here, and HDR10 video playback as well, but not Dolby Vision. The 120Hz refresh rate smooths out your movements like swiping and scrolling, and is adaptive, able to dial down when you're not interacting with it to save energy. We observed a minimum of 30Hz here. The Xperia I Mark VII's display is plenty bright, even brighter than last year when maxed out. We measured up to about 800 nits with the manual brightness slider, and this can boost to over 1470 nits in auto mode, compared to about 1300 on the previous model. When it comes to audio, the Xperia I Mark VII is one of the only flagships that still has a 3.5mm headphone jack. Sony says the headphone's experience is powered by Walkman, and it features high-end circuitry for even better sound. The phone's stereo speakers are again front-facing, and they actually seem to be a bit of a downgrade from last year. They earned a good rating for loudness rather than excellent, and while the quality is good, we've heard better from competing flagships. You can listen for yourself with our comparison tool linked below. For biometrics, the Xperia I Mark VII uses a side-mounted fingerprint reader rather than a trendy under-display one. It's quite responsive though. And another bit of a nostalgic feature is microSD expandable storage. We just wish that there was more onboard storage. 256 gigs is the only option. As for software, you get Android 15 on board, and the Xperia software experience is pretty conservative in terms of modifications on top of that. One of the more obvious customizations are the quick toggles in the notification shade. Here, they're square and have a uniform size. Another Sony exclusive which has been around for a while now is multi-window switch. It's basically 2 task switchers stacked on top of one another, used to navigate between your apps in split screen mode. Side Sense is another Sony feature, where a handle on the edge of the screen opens up a menu of shortcuts. You can customize these shortcuts for whatever you choose, including split screen pairs. Another neat feature is that you can connect the phone to Sony Alpha cameras and then use the phone as an external monitor. And there's a gaming interface as well, called Game Enhancer, which gives you plenty of gaming-related options. You can either access it within a standalone hub or as an overlay in-game. There's actually not much here in terms of AI-based features, which is surprising for a modern flagship. Of course, as on other Android phones, there is Google Gemini on board, but you won't find a suite of custom AI features here like you would from Samsung or most any other manufacturer. Sony claims that there is plenty of AI, but it's used behind the scenes for the camera processing. And for support, Sony promises 4 major OS releases and 6 years of security patches here. As expected for a flagship, the Xperia One Mark VII is equipped with a cutting-edge chipset, in this case a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite. In benchmarks, the Mark VII clearly outperforms its predecessor, but the scores are more on the lower end of the spectrum for Snapdragon 8 Elite equipped phones. That's not to say that this phone isn't powerful, just that some competitors are more optimized. In addition, the sustained performance here leaves more to be desired. In our prolonged stress tests, the drop in performance was pretty sharp, with the numbers dipping to about half of peak CPU performance within the first 8 minutes. The Xperia One Mark VII is powered by a 5000 mAh battery, just like last year, but the previous model, with its excellent battery life, proved to be a tough act to follow. The Xperia One Mark VII earned an active use score of 14 hours and 44 minutes in our tests, and don't get me wrong, that's quite good. However, last year's model was one of the best around, with a score of about 17.5 hours. Sony hasn't done anything about the charging speed here. It's still rated at just 30 watts, and the charger doesn't come in the box. With Sony's own adapter, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 51% in half an hour, and a full charge took around an hour and a half. Pretty slow by today's standards. There is support for wireless charging and reverse wireless charging here. Finally, we have the cameras. The setup includes the same main cam and continuous zoom telephoto as before, but now there's a new, larger sensor 50-megapixel ultrawide cam. As ever, you get a dedicated 2-step shutter button for the cameras, which is a bit larger now and with better tactile feedback. And since last year, Xperia phones have just one camera app for a more streamlined user experience. Daylight photos out of the Xperia's main camera are generally looking great. Detail is excellent overall, with nicely natural rendition of random textures and little to no noise. The look is expressive and contrasty, yet the phone maintains very good dynamic range with well-developed extremes. Photos of people are alright, but the rendition of facial detail is not our favorite. And the so-called bokeh mode can be a little too liberal with the background blur by default. The 2x zoom results from the main cam are very good in most cases. We had a bit more success outdoors, while indoor shots were a little softer, but all things considered, the 2x zoom level is more than usable. At night, the main cam continues to produce high-contrast images that still manage to deliver very good dynamic range. It strikes a really nice balance between highlight preservation and shadow development. Detail is top class, with no signs of over-sharpening. White balance and color saturation are also leaving us no grounds for complaint. Now on to the telephoto cam. Like before, it has continuous zoom. It can go all the way from 3.5 times to 7.1 times zoom, and is optical all the way. At 3.5 times zoom, the camera does well overall. Detail and sharpness are okay, and there's a bit of noise, particularly indoors, but it's not too bad. Dynamic range is great, with the same contrasty look as on the main camera, and colors are easy to like as well. When shooting people at 3.5 times zoom, the results are okay. Dynamic range is nicely wide, and the exposures are tailored to your subject, and the result is perhaps a little too bright overall. Colors are nice, but the detail of the subject is a bit disappointing. Things get a little softer around the middle of the zoom range. At 5 times, the results are still good, just not exactly stellar in terms of sharpness. There is also a macro mode at 5 times zoom, which can focus from as close as 4 centimeters. There's no autofocus available in this mode, but if you're patient, it has the potential to capture some nice looking close-ups. When shooting at 7.1 times and maxing out the camera's native zoom, there's even more of a decline in sharpness, though we'd still consider the results quite good. The nighttime zoom shots from the Xperia One Mark VII are alright. At 3.5 times zoom, the phone captures a good amount of detail, but the results aren't that sharp. Dynamic range and colors are pretty great though. When you zoom in further, there's a progressive decline in quality at a pixel level, though global properties remain good. Even at 7.1 times, you'll still be getting okay shots, just not ones that are too impressive. And now we have the Mark VII's new ultrawide cam, and it's indeed quite a nice one. Its shots are super sharp and detailed, and noise is well controlled. Dynamic range is excellent, and color rendition is superb too. And at night, again the ultra-wide shots are well worthy of praise, with some outstanding detail and low noise. We're loving the colors and dynamic range too. Selfies come from a 12 megapixel fixed focus front-facing cam. They have very good detail, and the colors and skin tones are quite likable. Dynamic range is excellent too. The Xperia I Mark VII can record video in 4K and up to 120 FPS with the rear cameras, while the selfie cam maxes out at 4K at 60 FPS. 4K videos from the main cam are good, but not great. The color presentation and dynamic range are excellent, but there's a general softness which is noticeable across the whole frame. From the telephoto cam, again, colors and dynamic range are very good, but the sharpness leaves more to be desired. We expected a bit more from the ultra-wide camera's footage. While colors and dynamic range remain excellent, it's not really delivering the great detail that we saw in the still photos. Video stabilization works quite well to smooth out movements while filming. And when shooting video at night, the main camera does a reasonably good job. The telephoto cam's footage, on the other hand, is quite soft. It isn't competitive against other flagships telephotos with their big sensors. The Xperia's ultra-wide, on the other hand, captures a bit better detail than average at night, thanks to its large sensor. So that's the Xperia I Mark VII. Just like last year, there's a lot of nice features, including rare ones like a headphone jack and expandable storage. The upgrades here are few though. There is a new chipset and a great new ultra-wide camera, but the battery life is actually shorter this time around, and the speakers are quieter too. And at the same time, other manufacturers are bringing plenty of innovation when it comes to AI-based features, something that's totally missing here on the Xperia. If you're a fan of Sony's approach to things and don't care about AI, then the Xperia I Mark VII could be worth looking into. Just keep in mind that last year's model might be an even better deal. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're looking for alternatives, here are links to our reviews of the Xperia I Mark VI and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.